Welcome back to the Judge Janine Tunnel to Towers Foundation show. Joining me now is a Pulitzer Prize winning columnist, Michael Goodwin. I'm sure you know him. You certainly read his columns. And join me in welcoming Michael to the Judge Janine Tunnel to Towers Foundation show. Michael Goodwin, you are a Pulitzer Prize winning columnist. You've been writing in the New York Post for many, many years, and I always read your columns because I think you're extremely smart, and we're thrilled to have you on the Tunnel to Towers Foundation show today. So let's start with the 100 days. Where do you come down on the president's 100 days? Good, bad?
Well, look, I think you would have to divide it into two sections, Judge. I think that's the easiest way to sort of parse out the different issues that have popped up. The first, I think, 70 days or so were terrific. I thought the border, he went right at it. He went right at the issues that he campaigned on. And I think we can't fully appreciate that unless you compare it to politicians in general who talk, get your vote, and then go into office and, I'll take care of that later. President Trump didn't behave that way. He went right at the issues he campaigned on, the border, a lot of the culture issues in terms of the transgender issue in sports, the DEI thing, the anti-Semitism on the colleges. I mean, it was a very powerful list of big-ticket items that he went right at. And I think very successfully, certainly in terms of the border, just in terms of educating the public about these issues and delivering, doing what he said he would do. I mean, that was one characteristic of his first term, and he has kept that. Promises made, promises kept. Then comes April 2nd, Liberation Day. And that has, I think, changed everything about how most of the public views the administration. You have seen, of course, the stock market has been on a wild ride. It plunged and then it's crawled back, so it's not down by a great amount. But there are these warnings of recessions, of inflation coming. Even the president yesterday acknowledged that there will be some inflation associated with the tariffs. I think this rollout has been something of a monkey wrench into the administration. I think it's distracted a lot of attention. I think it's created probably a lot of drama within the White House itself. Clearly, there have been some feuds over it. We hear talk of the, Lutnick and Basant and others, and Navarro. So I think it's roiled what was a really good, strong start and called into question the polls showing people losing confidence in the president's leadership on the economy, which was one of the big issues along with the border that he campaigned on. So I do believe that it was not handled in the best way. And I think the solution now is to get some deals done to create some momentum that this period is passing. And until they get some deals with maybe Japan, South Korea, et cetera, I think it's going to be hard to take the attention back away from this issue. So I encourage and I hope that the president and Basant and others can round up a few countries, get these deals done, and show that the idea is a good idea and that the implementation is taking place.
Well, it's very interesting that the president, decided to tackle the trade issue. I mean, He has been talking about trade for 40 years. I mean, going back to Oprah Winfrey interviews decades ago. He's got this spine and the determination and the perseverance. And, I understand that, whenever you have a team, they can very often disagree with each other. But we have to give him, and I do, I don't know about you. I mean, I read your columns, and I read your column on Trump's first 100 days. But, the fact that he was willing to tackle it, the fact that he said, this isn't fair, and it's going to be some short-term pain for long-term gain. I mean, he has followed through with things like bringing investment into this country. I mean, business investment is up by 22%. And, when it was down 6% when Biden left. And, there is going to be this pain, but there's talk of a trade deal with India and, as you say, Japan, and talk about trade deals. Who'd have thunk, Michael Goodwin, that we'd have the deal with Ukraine on the metals and uranium, about to be signed. And I think it was signed.
Yes. Look, and I think, just to go back to the original point here, he is right about the trade situation. It has been a couple of generations now of mistakes, of ripoffs that have hurt America, that have hollowed out a lot of manufacturing, shipped a lot of jobs overseas, Mexico, Canada even. So the president is on firm ground when he says this. And I think what he's counting on is that these tariffs, they penalize everybody, and that therefore it's not just America that needs to make a deal. It's China that needs to make a deal. It's Japan, it's South Korea, because we are the market for their products. And what he's saying is, that's fine, you can keep selling here, but we have to have a fair arrangement so that we can sell our products to you, and at a way that doesn't unfairly penalize America. I mean, just for example, with China, which is the ultimate target here. Let's face it.
Right. Exactly.
That they steal the intellectual property. They require, American companies to pay these enormous tariffs. I mean, is there an American car anywhere being sold in China or Germany?
How about Europe?
Exactly. So he's got a real issue here, and I just wish that it hadn't blown up to such an extent that it has undermined, I think, and in some ways rattled the administration. Mm-hmm. And I think, of course, it's given the media something, another baby doll to chew on. It's given the Democrats a foothold, something to talk about, at least. So I just think the implementation could have been done in a way that didn't cause all the disruption.
Yeah. Well, we shall see ultimately, Michael Goodwin, when it is wrapped up. And, he has shown that he is willing to maneuver, when he did the pause. Right. But I have to tell you that I ordered something from Europe. It was a suit. And the suit came, Michael, and it had a tariff on it, and it had a tax on it. And I sent it right back. And I said, you know what? It was a French suit. I said, but I don't need to. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to buy American now. Okay. I'm not going to pay the price for them to make money. I'd rather, if I'm going to be hit anywhere, I'd rather do it in the United States.
Well, that's the product. I mean, that's the problem here is that that they sell here, and the tariff that they're trying to charge you is only because the president has said we're going to do reciprocal. Right. I mean, otherwise it would be a one-way street, and they would sell things here, but we can't really sell things there. I mean, the tariffs that they impose on our products make them prohibitively expensive.
Exactly.
And they're more expensive to make here anyway, in general, certainly more than in the Asian countries. So this is a global issue, and the president has stirred the pot. Hopefully it will, the dinner will be complete soon, and so we can move on to these other issues, because there are so many other issues, and we want the American economy to hum along. I mean, it doesn't have to 5% a year growth, But if it can steadily turn out 3.25%, there'll be lots of new jobs, lots of prosperity. You factor in the tax cuts that are coming, right, and the probably business provisions within the big tax bill. I mean, the stage is set for a terrific economy for the remainder of the term.
Well, and it's like Secretary Bessent said, it's like a three-legged stool. It's trade, it's tax, and it's deregulation. So he's got to get that big, beautiful bill passed. And, that's got to happen pretty soon. Or, Americans, I think, will be hurting. But, he's willing to take the risk. He's willing to put it all on the line. He's willing to use his political capital, Michael Goodwin, to make things better. And, only time will tell. But in one of your columns, I just want to segue here a little bit. You talk about the, as Donald Trump called them, the rogue judges. What's your take on what they're doing across the country?
Well, I do believe that they are undermining the trust in the courts. Look, I mean, every institution in America now has a credibility problem. Mm-hmm. You look at the big Pew surveys, and public trust in the media, even in the military, has declined. Not as much as the media, of course. But I saw one of those surveys that said the thing that the institutions that Americans trust the most is small business. Mm-hmm. And it's, when you think about it, it's obvious, right? You know the people. They're local. And I think that what's happened with these bigger institutions, whether it's the media, even the government itself, it feels remote. It feels like it's working against the public interest. It feels like it's serving itself and not the public. And I think that's the problem with the courts. And I know John Roberts, the Chief Justice, has been called an institutionalist, which is true. And I think the best and worst senses of the word, that he wants to protect the courts. He wants the courts to retain this credibility. Mm-hmm. But what these district judges are doing across the country in issuing nationwide injunctions, I think undermines public trust in the courts. Well, I mean, a single judge cannot rule from Northern California that the rest of the country can't do what the president wants to do. They're nullifying the election. I mean, that's what they're doing. I don't know if that's their intent, but that's the impact. That's what it looks like. That's what it feels like. And I think John Roberts and Supreme Court have to quickly rein this in and say, hey, buddy, stay in your lane. We'll handle this. But you have one case in front of you. Adjudicate that case, but don't try to solve the national issues on these. That's what the Supreme Court is for.
Well, and the Supreme Court did something rather unusual when they came in and put a hold on the TRO with Judge Boasberg and basically slapped him down and said, no, you're not going to do this. So we're all waiting for a decision by the Supreme Court on, the power of a local district court judge. And that's what they are. They're local judges. They're trial judges. They're at the trial level, not even in an appellate court. And they're trying to influence not just policy across the United States, but foreign policy as well. And it is bizarre, and I'm looking forward to hearing what the Supreme Court ultimately does. Right,
because, I mean, the unspoken word here is resistance. I mean, are they part of the resistance? Mm-hmm. That's what it feels like in these cases, and the judge and the Roberts and the Supremes have to step in and say, that's not your job.
This National Foster Care Month, Marine Toys for Tots is providing hope to children who need it most. Staff Sergeant James Caldwell, who grew up in foster care himself, shares that while handing out gifts at a Toys for Tots distribution event, a little girl looked up at him, reached into her bag, pulled out a stuffed animal and said, "Someone needs to make sure you get a toy too." That simple gesture embodies the heart of Marine Toys for Tots, ensuring every child, including those in foster care, experiences the kindness that can transform their future. Visit toysfortots.org today.
Smart Water Alkaline with antioxidant. 9.5 plus pH, now in cans.
Refreshing.
Made for every way you move.
Should I run a marathon?
Let's start with finishing that water. Smart Water Alkaline with antioxidant, now in a sleek can. For those with a taste for taste. Grab yours today.
This episode is brought to you by Temptations Cat Treats. Your cat will come running for the perfectly irresistible Temptations Creamy Puree and Temptations Lickable Spoon Cat Treats. The best time to feed lickable cat treats to your cat is anytime. Feed by hand for a playful moment, in a bowl for a creamy treat, or as a topper to make mealtime fun. Visit TemptationsTreats.com to learn more.
This episode is brought to you by GM Genuine Parts and AC Delco. Get the most out of your vehicle with GM Genuine Parts and AC Delco original equipment. The only parts designed, engineered, tested, and backed by General Motors. You can find your perfect fit for most makes and models and choose from 3 tiers of parts, including GM OE or gold and silver aftermarket parts. Visit gmparts.com for more information.
Right. Right. And it really is amazing that Michael Goodwin, you and I have been around long enough to know that, what we're seeing now is so different in terms of the behavior by these judges and, the belief that, they should be involved in cases that are not really within their own jurisdiction or trying to expand their own jurisdiction. But, having said all that, I kind of want to segue now to the issue of, the anti-Semitism on the college campuses. And we've seen the back and forth with the administration and universities like Harvard and Columbia. I mean, how does that all end up?
Well, look, I think it's a test of presidential powers. Can the president withhold funds because of these violations of civil rights laws, which have happened on these campuses? I thought it was very interesting, the Harvard report, which effectively was a guilty plea to all of the issues it's suing the White House over. I mean, it says the White House doesn't have the right to withhold money from it, but here's Harvard admitting that the school was a hotbed of anti-Semitism for decades. So it seems to me that they've undercut their suit, at least in the public mind. They're not innocent of the president's charges. Again, I do think, though, on this case, Judge, that there's been some problems in the White House implementation. I don't know whether this hasn't gotten a lot of attention, but the team going after these colleges on this, which I wholly support.
Yes.
In fact, Columbia is my alma mater, and I think it's a great place to start because that is a real cesspool of anti-Semitism.
Yes.
But the team that sent the letter to Harvard outlining all the things that Harvard had to comply with, when Harvard said, no, it's too crazy, it's too many things, we're not even going to deal with it, the New York Times reported, and I believe accurately so, that the White House team then withdrew the letter. Now, this has not gotten a lot of attention.
What do you mean they withdrew the letter? Explain that.
Well, they sent a letter to Harvard saying you've got to do A, B, C, D,
right.
E, F. There's a long list of things.
But when you say they withdrew it, did they say forget it or we're sorry? What do you mean?
Well, they said it was sent in mistake, that it was premature.
Mm-hmm.
Now, one could argue, as the White House does and did with me about it, is that it doesn't matter whether the letter was withdrawn or anything, because we withheld the money. We moved to freeze the grants, $2 billion or so, mm-hmm. and Harvard responded by suing. So that's the issue now, not the letter. Fair point.
Yes.
But again, why would you withdraw a letter? I mean, it was haphazard. It's like it was done without everybody on board agreeing what it would be, because when the spit hit the fan, mm-hmm. they suddenly found that's not the letter we want to, that's not the hill we want to die on.
Right.
This letter is not what we really want. So it's things like that, look, this is an administration that's moving at 100 miles an hour. I mean, and this is a president who works, 16, 17 hours a day.
Yes.
So they're going to make mistakes. They're going to, mm-hmm. of course, but nobody is working harder than they are to rectify the mess that they inherited. And so I wholly support and applaud that. I mean, we are, as taxpayers, we're finally getting our money's worth out of the federal government.
Michael Goodwin, it really is incredible. I mean, I don't know that America has ever felt that I'll use the female pronoun, that she was so involved in presidential matters. It's like we're in the Oval Office every day, not once a day, but twice a day. It's almost as though we are literally part of what's going on in the administration. I mean, the transparency is incredible. And that in itself is very telling that, the president has nothing to hide, that he is trying to include America. He is trying to be transparent, that there isn't the gamesmanship that, the Democrats would like to play. It's just a guy, a man who wants to make America great again.
Well, I think you put your finger on a whole other big issue, which is the media. And I think he's doing that. He's bringing the public into the Oval Office because you don't trust the media to interpret and describe what's happening there. He wants people to see it so they can make their own judgments. And, part of this effort, and I think this is a terrific thing that has not gotten enough attention, they are trying to democratize the media, and the media is fighting back. They have a monopoly. The big legacy outfits have a monopoly on access to the president. And so when he invites the cameras into the Oval Office, the old saying, right? To see the sausage being made, to the cabinet meeting and things like that. The media is no longer in the way. The media is actually helping the president get the word out. But Caroline Leavitt, with the briefing room, inviting other bloggers and podcasters and other groups in, to stand along the wall, ask questions. I don't think people understand, Judge, that there is a group called the White House Correspondents Association.
Yes.
It is an old legacy group. It basically controlled for many, many years who got in with these small groups into the Oval Office or on Air Force One. It selected the media outlets that could be part of that. And in the briefing room, which people see on television, there are 49 seats in there. It's a very small room.
Yes.
They assign the seats. They tell you where you can sit. And this is government property, and this group has a monopoly. They're the ultimate gatekeepers in who gets in there, who gets to ask the questions. And the Trump administration, the president, Caroline Leavitt, Stephen Chung, they are breaking up the monopoly. And of course, the New York Times and the others are going crazy. How dare you let in people who ask questions that we don't care about, right? They want to be able to control what questions are asked, what the public hears, and even what issues the president addresses. I mean, it's unbelievable, the arrogance of these organizations, and Trump is he's plowing right through it. He's not gonna let it go on that way. And I think when Caroline Leavitt really gets to, I think, what is coming, which is reassigning the seating, they're going to go crazy.
Michael Goodwin, how they complain about it, they say they are cutting off the press's First Amendment rights. No, they're not. They're expanding them to other outlets that were not part of the monopoly.
It's a very big event. And it's not getting enough attention because, the New York Times is complaining about it. They did a video on who these people are and what questions they ask and who do they work for. It's all because they're losing control. They're losing control of the what the president says and does. And by having that control, what they're able to do is manipulate it and describe it in ways that fits their agenda. That has nothing to do with often with what the president actually said or did, but it's their interpretation for their audience, which, of course, for most of them, hates Donald Trump. And so it's the most venal interpretation you can put on his words. And that's what he's breaking up. I mean, you would think they would be for democratizing the media. You would think they would be for more speech, not less. But
Right.
think again, they want to control what the public hears, and they're losing that battle, and it's driving them crazy.
Well, they are losing it, and Donald Trump and the American people are winning it. Michael Goodwin, columnist with the New York Post, a brilliant analysis of the press and the legacy media's monopoly. It was great having you on, Michael Goodwin. Thanks so much for joining us. You take
My
care.
pleasure, Judge. Thank you.
All right. Take care. Bye-bye. All right, Michael Goodwin, stay with us. We'll be back after the break. I want to talk to you about the legacy media.
Hello, folks. Larry Kudlow here. Pay attention, because China is leading the largest anti-American alliance since World War II. One that's already dumped U.S. bonds, grabbed 43 million acres of our farmland, and is plotting to dethrone the dollar. That's why IRA and 401k savers are protecting their savings with gold. Please go to freegoldguide.com/Kudlow or just call 800-621-3908 for your free gold guide on how to protect your wealth with gold 100% tax-free.